tension today, Philippines says it will forge security alliances and stage combat drills despite China's opposition. The Philippines will continue to build security alliances and stage joint combat drills in disputed waters to defend its territorial interests, Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro said Friday, dismissing China's criticisms of such moves as paranoia. Teodoro bluntly criticized Beijing's increasingly aggressive actions in the South China Sea, without citing China by name, in a speech before the military's top brass at a ceremony marking the anniversary of the Philippine Navy's founding in Manila. The Philippines, he said, would not tolerate aggression and provocative moves. Since territorial hostilities with China surged last year in the South China Sea, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s administration has taken steps to forge new security alliances with a number of Asian and Western countries and allowed a U.S. military presence in more Philippine bases under a 2014 defense pact. In April and May, the Philippine military staged annual live-fire combat exercises with U.S. forces in and near the disputed waters. China has said such actions by the U.S. and its allies, including the Philippines, were provocative, aimed to contain Beijing, and were endangering regional security. Terming these cooperative activities with like-minded nations as a containment or a provocation is disinformation and evidence of paranoia of a closed political system, Teodoro said in a clear reference to China. The ultimate intent is to get what they want by the threat or the use of force. This we cannot allow to continue. The Philippines is the U.S. oldest treaty ally in Asia. Washington has warned that it is obligated to help defend the Philippines if its forces, aircraft, and ships come under an armed attack, including in the disputed South China Sea. The Philippines has defense pacts allowing American and Australian forces to enter the country for annual combat readiness and disaster response training, and is negotiating a similar agreement with Japan and considering another pact with France. It has held joint maneuvers with the U.S., Australian, and Japanese navies this year. In their largest and boldest annual military exercises last month, thousands of U.S. and Philippine forces staged the retaking of an island and sank a warship in combat drills focusing on territorial defense in or near the South China Sea. They carried out aerial reconnaissance and logistical transport drills and secured an airfield during mock combat in a Philippine town near Taiwan. For the first time, we have evolved a realistic training scenario with evolutionary hypothetical scenarios where we can actually test our capabilities, Teodoro said. There will be more maritime cooperative activity between us and like-minded nations. Chinese defense spokesperson Wu Qian said in Beijing last month that we oppose external interference, muscle flexing, provocations, and harassment in the South China Sea, and oppose piecing together exclusive circles or bloc confrontation. He said China would resolutely defend its territories. Philippine actions to defend its internationally recognized exclusive economic zone can, in no way, be termed by any sane person as a provocation, Teodoro said, adding that Philippine officials were sworn to do that as their constitutional duty. In addition to China and the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan are also involved in territorial disputes in the South China Sea, a key global trade route. Marcos has ordered his military to shift its focus to external defense from decades of domestic anti-insurgency operations, as China's actions in the South China Sea become a top concern. That shift dovetails with efforts by U.S. President Joe Biden and his administration to reinforce an arc of alliances in the Indo-Pacific region to counter China's actions. Meanwhile, Asian neighbors worry of China's plans to deploy floating nuclear plants. China's planned deployment of floating nuclear reactors to the disputed South China Sea may risk ramping up tensions with other claimants and undermining regional security, and claimants should work through a multilateral framework to counter China, say experts. China claims almost the entirety of the South China Sea as its own despite a ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in 2016, which rejected the claim as having no legal basis. Malaysia, Vietnam, and the Philippines also have rival claims to some island chains and parts of the sea. Such regulations do not exist in the Philippines, she noted, but Manila can still assert its right to monitor Chinese nuclear plant under its maritime laws. Since 2014, China has reclaimed land to build artificial islands on some features it controls in the Spratly Archipelago, which is also claimed by Hanoi and Manila. New dataset reveals the extent Beijing is determined to enforce South China Sea territorial claims. But there was a new barrier installed recently by the Chinese, just visible under the water. Airships were right behind us, two positioning themselves on either side of the Filipino ship, at which point they began firing their powerful water cannon. We were rushed inside, from where we could hear the jets of water thundering against the metal walls of the ship. They smashed the awning in the stern and mangled a railing on one side.